Alrighty. Hey guys. So, I I did a analysis of this game a couple days ago, and my mic wasn't turned on or something. So I have a 100-minute video of me showing stuff on the screen and no audio. So I'm gonna record this again, and hopefully it will not be as long, and hopefully it'll be more cogent and more it'll just move along quicker, more focused. So this game is like the first full game I've played, as far as like getting to an end game and an end board state. I played one game on chess.com, or two games rather, that were correspondence timed. The way correspondence games works is that each turn, each move you make, you have 24 hours to make it. So my first video, each player got 10 minutes to make all of their moves like combined to play the game. So the max time it could be is 20 minutes. But this game could theoretically go on for a month. But it went on for 5 days or so. But in one of those games, my opponent didn't move, and it was very early, so there's not a whole lot to talk about. The other one was a weird wonky game, which I might talk about to make a short video about puzzles and some ideas for like weak spots on the board. I played one full game on chess.com that finished up yesterday, which I'll do a video about, which also had an end game. And the one I did record a video on, the 10-minute one, the timed game, that kind of maybe got to the beginning of the end game, but the kind of benchmark I usually hear for the ending or the wrapping up of the middle game is sort of like when your queens get off the board. That kind of signals that the game is kind of winding down a little bit, and that we're either going to be playing for checkmate or draw. Yeah, so I was playing black, my opponent was playing white. I didn't play very good this game. I did win, but there's a lot of lessons to be learned. Alright, so queen pawn opening. So talking about reviewing our opening fundamentals, you want to be controlling the center. So specifically these 4 squares here in the middle, and kind of more broadly the 2 squares on either side. This is about having space, because if you have more space, your opponent has less space. And if your opponent has less space, they're cramped, their pieces have fewer places to move to, that sort of thing. So we want to be playing toward the center, influencing the center. We want to be developing our pieces from the back rank to any squares forward, because they can actually do stuff once they move out, and they hopefully will be developed toward the center where they can do stuff, because the center is going to be important, and controlling the center is controlling the game to a certain degree. And thirdly, we want to be castling our king, and castling our king is about safety. If your king is not castled, he's probably not super safe. Yeah, and by kind of corollary, we want to prevent our opponent from doing those things if we can. So queen pawn opening, so we're controlling the center here, right? We got this dark square in the very center. We've got kind of like a semi-center dark square. We're physically on a piece, or on one of the center squares. We're opening for our bishop to be developed, as well as our queen. So this is a perfectly good opening. as far as the most common openings, I think king pawn is the most common, and queen pawn is maybe second. They lead to wildly different games, but they're both fine. And I have less experience playing queen pawn. So I kind of mirror. Basically, the same stuff applies. I think other openings you might sometimes see are like maybe the knight going out, or I don't know what other openings you would think about, but this is the one I would play always. Alright, bishop is going out toward that dark square in the semi-center. So it's kind of not really attacking this pawn here, but it's something to think about as far as like it's hard to move that pawn out toward the center to like reinforce this pawn. Like if you wanted to move it one forward, because the bishop is attacking the knight, I would just move the rook, but that's not like a super great feeling to have to move your rook that early in the game. But this is developing, obviously. If he wants the castle queen side, he's getting closer to doing that, and he's playing toward the middle, specifically like this dark square here next to my pawn would be a strong square to be on, and he's kind of denying that doubly with having both the pawn and the bishop attacking it. So this is a fine move. I think the openings I usually do with queen is the queen's gambit, where you move this c2 pawn to c4, and either black takes it or black does something else. Yeah, I don't think it's a super common at higher levels, but I think it's an interesting opening. And personally, I might have just brought the knight out, but I think bishop is fine. So I do bring my knight out because this pawn is it could potentially be exploited. I think what I'm kind of doing with this move is I'm attacking the pawn, not really, because the queen's guarding it, but potentially. And I'm also kind of working toward reinforcing this dark square here if I want to make a move for it at some point. But yeah, developing the knight, getting close to castle on the queen side. I don't think I would have done the bishop. I think maybe moving the king pawn forward once might be an interesting idea. Or even doing the G knight, getting that developed, in case he's trying to, I don't think he would, but just in case he does want to take that E4 square with the king pawn. It denies that prematurely. Alright, so he just moves the king pawn forward once, because I've already got a pawn attacking it. I'm not sure it would be too scary to, or like I'm not sure it would be too bad for him to move it forward all the way. Never mind, it is. The computer doesn't like that. So he just moves forward once. So he's reinforcing the center pawn. He's got the queen pawn. He's defending his bishop. So semi center focused, I would say. He's letting his bishop get out if he wants to. The something that think is common at lower levels is to bring the bishop out to attack this knight, because the knight would not be able to move at that point. And by that I mean if the bishop is on this light square, if the knight were to move, then the bishop would be putting the king in check, and you can't put your own king in check. That's called a pin, and we'll be seeing more of those in the game, I think. But what a pin is when you it's a tactical move where you have an attacking piece that is attacking a less valuable piece that's in front of a more valuable piece. And so the idea is, if you try to move that less valuable piece, then your more valuable piece is going to get taken by the attacking piece. And generally the attacking piece is like of equal or lesser value to the least valuable piece in the pin, and usually it's less valuable than the most valuable piece. So you're trying to get a good trade, and you're trying to take pieces out of the fight for your opponent, and those pieces have to be lined up to be a pin. There's two types of pins: absolute pins, which is where your king is the most valuable piece in that line. So you legally cannot move that less valuable piece, because it's not legal. And the other pin is relative, where technically you can move that less valuable piece, but it will be at the cost of that more valuable piece, probably. So yeah. I think this is a fine play. I'm not sure. I don't think moving this pawn is great. It's about the same, it looks like. So yeah, either those two pawn moves I think would be fine. What about this one? No, that's not good. I'm just kind of experimenting, see what the computer likes and doesn't like. Yeah, so there's a bunch of moves that are fine. And this being one of them. Alright, so I bring my bishop out, kind of like mirroring it. I think this is mostly just like a development thing. I didn't want to be on that light square in front of the queen, which I'm not sure why, because I think it would be fine in retrospect after moving the king pawn away. I didn't want to block the king pawn, which I definitely agree with not doing. I didn't want to go this far forward because the queen just takes it. And same thing with this, the pawn just takes it. Let's see if it... No, it doesn't like that. Yeah, it looks like it likes the knight a little bit more. So yeah, this is a fine move. The knight looks like it's a little bit better, although the threat of him moving that pawn forward now is not really. Well, one, it's kind of moot by this move, because this blocks it anyway. But I think the knight has the better advantage of defending this pawn of mine already in the center. So, but yeah, it's developing. We're getting closer to queenside castling. All we have to do is move the queen And yeah. So, and then this is center focused, so it kind of checks off all the boxes for our opening moves. Knight forward. I'm trying to remember what I thought he was doing with this move. He's kind of like triply defending this pawn, which wasn't in any danger. He's defending this bishop dark square if I want to move a pawn there, which would not make much sense. Because the bishop could already just take it for free. It's center focused. He's denying me this dark square here again in the center. It's a developing move. Gets him closer to castling kingside. The computer isn't like super crazy about it. Not sure what the computer wants to do. But it looks like that's fine. I'm just really trying to figure out what the computer wants to do, because so yeah, I guess that's a fine move. Alright, I think with this move, I was trying to set up an attack on this, like being able to camp up on this center square, maybe. Either that, or I think I was like prepping an attack on this dark square, because then he can't take back for free, and his trade is going to be pretty bad, actually. It says it just doesn't help us develop. It's semi-center oriented. Doesn't get us closer to castling. It looks like the king pawn moving forward once is a little bit better. Moving the knight, not good. Yeah, so I'm not sure what the computer would have done. I guess move that king pawn forward once, but yeah, because it just helps our bishop develop. So I think that's probably the best move. But I don't think this is like the worst move. It's not great. And in retrospect, I think the king move is a lot better. And I wish I would have done the king move. Alright, he develops his knight in front of his queen, which I don't remember if it's the king square or the queen square. One of these squares is important in queen pawn openings to have your knight on. I don't remember which it is. I guess it's probably the queen one, but I don't know. Yeah, so he's getting closer to developing queen side. It's taking this forward pathway from the queen, but she still has this diagonal if she wants to get out. An interesting thing, I don't think this is good. Yeah, it's not great. I personally would have probably developed this other way, but it looks like it's about even. Just because this is attacking my pawn, and if for some reason we want to move this pawn forward, it defends that too. That's pretty much it, I think, as far as it is nice to have this knight set up where they're both defending each other. That's a pretty strong setup for knights, so that's good, but it's not needed right now. So the computer doesn't like this move a bunch, because I'm setting up that attack, and I'm saying, hey, you have to either do a bad trade or you have to move your bishop back. I still think I guess the king pawn is a little bit better now, but not like great. Yeah. I guess it seems like it's the best move to make. Yeah, this is not a great pawn structure, because lots of stuff it would be defending itself, but it's moving away from the center, right? So, like if he takes back with the bishop, this pawn is moving toward the side of the board where it's not as impactful. But I'm not sure if there's really a whole lot better going on for me right now. The one good thing this does is it lets my bishop finally develop, but I'm having a dark square problem over here, so my bishop isn't going to be able to escape anytime soon, and that's why the computer likes this king pawn move so much, is because it lets my bishop get out. And there might be a sequence where like I move the king pawn forward once and then move the bishop to the dark square, so that I think that just would have been a better sequence all around, because if and I can do this move later, because the bishop can't really take it back, or else the queen takes, so the bishop can't escape if my bishop is on this dark square here by my pawn. And if it were to try to escape back toward beside my bishop, my thing takes it. I guess it's not like a super threat, because the pawn could take back, but then it leaves his king out in the open, like to a potential check, which would not be like super threatening, because he could just move the bishop. He could interpose the knight. Moving the bishop would have been best in that sort of check. B moves the bishop back, which I think is the right move. It's the only move that doesn't lose him big stuff. Yeah. So he moves it back. I developed my bishop, but it's to a useless square because it's blocked, and this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I looked at trying to move this pawn forward to attack the knight, but you can get to some safe squares. Specifically this one, which attacks our bishop. Although I think this seems to be really bad. Shit. Sorry. Yeah. This square is just as this square is not any different than it was before moving the bishop. Looks like the computer likes moving the king pawn, just because we get to develop our bishop toward a useful direction. I think the queen is also something I would probably look at further. I'm waiting to see what the computer says. It looks at a little bit less than the king pawn going forward once, but I think that would be fine, because you get to castle. So it looks like this king pawn opening, or not opening, but movement to develop our bishop, and once we develop our bishop, to develop our knight. Seems to be a good choice. And I don't think moving the bishop isn't good. Yeah, so this is just a case of me saying development good, but not super thinking very clearly about how it's being developed, because again, it's not doing anything useful. And even like on this square, like the bishop is more useful because at least it like contends and is defended. So he moves his pawn, his queen pawn, which the computer isn't super happy about. I think, again, it's defending this overly defended pawn here, his queen pawn that he moved the first time. This does let his queen move out on this diagonal, which is good, because she needs to develop. And she would probably just be doing the same thing that the bishop was doing, basically, if I had to guess. It looks like the computer likes moving this all the way forward better. Because if I take it, I'm giving back center influence. And I'm assuming he can get something else out of it. Yes, he can. I don't think he would move forward to attack the knight. Not exactly sure what the follow-up would be. But this is a defended pawn. Oh yeah. So if I take it, he just takes back like that. Then he's up a good bunch. So yeah. Because that it's more aggressive. It's a defended move and it does the same thing. So this the computer doesn't like at all. It still just likes moving the king pawn forward once, I think. I think at this point I was like, this square is adequately defended now, so I'm going to take center. And if he tries to trade, it'll be even, but I think he gets like the tempo, which is good for him, so he can do something. This kind of further blocks our bishop. and we do get to finally develop our knight to a good square, which I don't do. Yeah, I'm not crazy about this move. I wasn't crazy about most of the moves in this game. So the computer isn't crazy about this move. Usually in the opening, if you have stuff to develop and castling to do, you don't want to move a piece you've already moved. Obviously an exception if your piece is in danger. But his knight is super safe already. I'm not sure what he's doing other than I guess opening his queen up to move forward, but that I don't think it's a good place to be. I think it's like I guess it's as center focused as the old position. But yeah, I certainly don't think it's like a great place. Looking right now, after his move, I'm kind of wondering if not attacking this is bad, because he can jump to 2 safe spots, so it's not a huge threat. So I'm trying to think, like right now, what I would do. I think developing the knight might be decent. It's not great, but I think it's decent. Moving the queen. It's bad for some reason. Why is that bad? I don't immediately see why that's so bad. I guess maybe because of the knight pin, maybe? Not sure. Here is even worse. Oh, maybe I developed it there, which is very bad too. Yeah, I moved it there. So this is a bad move because apparently it's not like the most terrible move. Because it's a bad move because we put our pawn in a pin. Right? Because we can't move it forward or else the bishop takes our queen. And that's not good. So I guess this might actually be the best move according to the computer, but I don't like my setup. But we've developed our queen. We're doing center stuff, and we are going to castle queenside, because again we want our pawns to be in like a three long wall. So the way this game is looking, just based on the board, you would say black is looking to castle queenside because he has this wall there. He's definitely not going to castle kingside because this is not structurally safe at all, right? Because our king's going to be right here on this diagonal that's only guarded by a bishop or a pawn, right? So that's not great. Easy to put him in check. If he got a knight to this square, it'd also be check. Yeah. And king would castle kingside for white because this inside pawn on the queen side has moved, so it opens up that diagonal, right? Actually, the king would be on this dark square, but even kind of like less protected. So the computer doesn't like this move. I think at the time I didn't like this move either, because I'm like, why is this Joker just moving around his knight? So what he's actually doing is he's setting up a checkmate, kind of like predicting that I will castle queenside pretty soon. So he's going to set up his queen onto the square that the knight just left. I'm going to castle, and then he's going to attack this b7 pawn, because I'll talk about it more when we get there. So castle, queen moves. I'm trying to go back here and think if there's any better moves. That might be like better, just moving that pawn. I didn't see the queen checkmate setup coming, but if I had, this would have nipped it in the bud. This would be like a prophylactic move, because we're attacking this knight twice. I can't take it with the queen, or else that's like just as bad as checkmate. And then if his queen tries to do it, this pawn is guarded by two other pawns. So that would be the best move, I think. But I castled. Again, just a case of castle good. So now the queen moves out, and then I'm like, okay, I see it now. So we have I'm trying to think if there's any other ways to stop it. Oh, I see. Yeah. So there's three ways to stop this. Well, first off, it's checkmate, because if the queen gets on this b7 pawn, the king is under attack, so that's check. He can't move to the b square, because that's also check. He can't take back, because the knight is protecting that square, and he can't jump out, because the knight's defending that square. So that's checkmate. Checkmate in one. If I don't do some sort of move that prevents that. So we have three ways of stopping that. Actually, really just one, or three. The one I just thought about is moving this pawn beside the knight, but that doesn't help anything. That just kind of like delays it by one turn. Again, we can take the knight with the queen, but we're giving our queen away for nothing, so might as well be checkmate. We can move this pawn forward, which now is not as attractive, I don't think. And the move I made is to move the knight, so we're attacking the queen and we're defending this vulnerable square. My hope was that he would just like move his queen away, not attacking anything. But he attacks the knight. At which point if we don't do anything about this, right, like he's just gonna go back for that light squared weak point. So we have to preferably defend the knight in a way that doesn't get our queen taken. and that doesn't completely ruin our pawn structure in front of the king. And so I just made that move that we've been talking about, moving that b pawn forward. We don't want to really attack the queen, because the queen is pretty safe. There's no way to attack her that is like better for us than it is for him. Because like if we just attack it with this a pawn, then he can just take the knight for free, and that's bad for us. And we don't have any good follow-ups after that. So we're kind of defending the knight and attacking his knight, more so defending our knight than anything. But he puts me in check again, which I don't think is fruitful for him, because so we could technically move the knight in between, but that doesn't help anything, because the queen just takes it with checkmate. So we there's only one thing we can do, is to move right. He moves his pawn forward. I'm not sure why. Oh, I guess he's just attacking the knight, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna take your knight and then checkmate you this next turn." But that doesn't super work, because I can just... Okay, so I was thinking take the knight, which is not great. So when your opponent is making a threat against you, there's 3 ways of dealing with it, pretty much. The first is to just take whatever is attacking your thing. And this is really only good if you can do that safely and like an even trade. So like bishop for bishop, bishop for knight, that sort of thing. You don't want to like take it with your queen and then get your queen taken, because that's like a worse thing for you. So the second thing you can do is you can interpose a piece. So like I was talking about with the knight, or I guess if your thing is threatened, you can just move it too, right, to a safe square. You're kind of losing like a move though, essentially, to do that. You can interpose something between the attacking piece sometimes. So like bishop, rook, queen, you can do that. So like imagine imagine our pawn here hadn't moved and was on this king e7 square, and he moved his bishop to attack my queen. Moving the pawn diffuses that a little bit, right? Because then if he wants to do this, he has to trade a bunch of stuff and doesn't get the queen ever. And the thing I like to do, I think is the thing most people probably like to do, is to make a bigger threat somewhere else. So it's like an arms race almost, like who's got a bigger gun. So he said, "Hey, I'm gonna take your knight, and then I'm gonna checkmate you." Then I say, "Well, if you try to do that, I'm gonna take your queen, and you can't checkmate me." And even taking like, so if he were to do this, he would take my knight, I would take his queen, then he would take my bishop with check, and then I would probably just like move my king. I don't know where I'd move him, but he's losing 2 pawns in that exchange, basically, worth of stuff. I would say losing your queen is probably worse than losing a bishop and a knight. although my bishops and knights that I would be losing are very valuable and very active, as opposed to like losing these two bishops and knights here on the left that are not doing anything. So he's got to do something about the queen. I think I was hoping he would move it like further back. But yeah. But then we've kind of still got like a threat going on here. One thing that's nice about being in trouble is that your decisions are very localized. Like, you know where the problems are, and so you only really have to think about those moves that impact this space immediately. I'm not sure what his best move is. I think moving it. Nope. Yeah, it's really bad. Yeah, I suppose his move was the best he could make. Yes, technically you could put that in check. That's still not. I don't think it doesn't change anything really for him. So I think this is probably the best move for his queen. Again, his queen is really cramped here, so that's something you should try to do, is to cramp your opponent's pieces if possible. So this is not good. Going to the computer. I'm trying to think what I would rather do. If anything. It looks like attacking the queen now is better. A little bit. I'm just trying to see if there's any better. Yeah, I think moving that one from the bishop, I think, is probably better, because it does the same thing. I think I was just looking at. I thought I could get an even trade with queens, but I actually can't. I lose a bishop in the exchange, so that's not good. Or wait, hold up. It's even in material until he takes the knight. So now I'm just kind of like trading for no reason. Shit. So at this point, that's even worse. Yep. I'm trying to think of better moves to make, because that might have been the best one. Attacking that knight from the other angle. They're about the same. God, not again. Okay. I can just press. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah. So I started trading stuff, which is not good. So in my last video, I talked about material differential, and again, material is the value of the stuff you have on the board, with each piece being different value, or being a certain value. So if you consider being down like a knight early in the game, that's not good. But you're down 3 material on a board that has like 20 plus material on it. So it's, I mean, percentage wise, it's a lot less of your material, right? That you're being down. But if you have like 3 material on the board and you're down 3 material, your opponent has double the stuff you have. So you're probably gonna lose depending on what that stuff is. And so if you are up in material, it is generally kind of, again, it's a benchmark thing, or like a rule of thumb. If you can just keep trading stuff evenly, or at least like semi-evenly, you just want to like make that material differential starker just by removing stuff from the board. I think the other thing I was thinking about with all these trades is just making things less complicated, so I can kind of focus on stuff more. But as you can see up here, white is up by 9 pawns based on the stuff that he has taken, which I think he's only just like taken a knight. He's up he's up a minor piece, a knight / bishop, or he's up a bishop, and maybe some pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I'm a pawn. Okay. As far as like actual pawns go, but part of this calculation includes position. So if you look at his pawns, he's got a wall for his king if he wants to castle. These pawns are defending each other. None of my pawns are defending each other. My rook is awkward. My bishop hasn't developed, my bishop really hasn't developed usefully. My knight hasn't developed at all. Yeah, stuff is just really bad for me. So he puts me in check again. Not exactly sure why. Check again, not sure why. Check again. And each time there's only one place I could move legally. So check again. He's forking. So here I can either move up or I can move down, or left. Oh. So I didn't realize why I moved left yesterday when I did my video. Because the computer likes up a little bit more, and I wasn't sure why. Maybe it does like left more. Anyway, so the knight is doing what's called a fork. So a fork is when one of your pieces is attacking 2 enemy pieces at the same time. It's a little bit different than a pin, because pin, the things have to be lined up. But a fork, the things are in different directions. And I think what I was thinking about with this left move is that if I move up, he just takes the bishop for free. I didn't realize that my rook would have been defending the bishop at that point. Never mind. It looks like it likes left more. Anyway. So we're defending this bishop with our king. In the end game, the king becomes a little bit more active and can be more attacking and defending oriented, or be used in an attack/defense in a way that it's not safe to do in the early game. So I'm not sure what this move is about. I think it's just attacking the rook, and it forces the rook to move down. Because if it moves left, it gets captured. If it goes up, it gets captured. Not sure. Maybe the 9 move would have been a little bit better. I don't know. But I moved down just to get the rook in safety. The thing about doing this knight, I guess, toward the center, is that if the bishop takes my rook, takes his rook. So it's an even trade. So he brings his rook, his bishop down to attack the rook and to take the pawn. So the shitty thing about this is I can't just like take. I don't even know what I was gonna say. If I move it back, I was thinking either between the two safe squares we have are here and here. So the reason we don't want to move here is because when white forks us on this square, we can't take back the knight with anything. So he gets to take that rook for free. So we move it to the only safe square. He puts me in check again. Could have escaped left also, which might be slightly better. I was just thinking about something more aggressive. Although this knight is defended by the bishop, so it's not super threatening to move the king there. At this point in the game, I was thinking about this rook on white, because if we can move our knight, then our rooks are in a battery. So a battery is when two things are lined up attacking in the same direction. So like a bishop and a queen, or two rooks, or like a queen and a rook could do a battery. So the idea would be to move the knight and then take this bishop. He takes back and then I take back. So I'm up a bishop. But I didn't see that the knight is guarding that square as well. So that was not a well thought out sequence. It's not sound. That's what they would say. So he moves his pawn. At this point, white can do pretty much anything. I think I would have castled to get this rook active a little bit faster. But I'm trading badly and letting that rook get an open file to attack the bishop. So now I move my knight again. I'm kind of fixated on this battery idea, not thinking about how it blocks in my bishop. Yeah, so he's attacking my bishop. I'm gonna go shit. As far as defending the bishop, we can't defend it with our king, which would be nice because the knight is cutting off that square. We can't defend it with the knight because then the knight attacks that square. Actually attacks the bishop as well. So, and puts me in a fork. So, not great to say the least. And so, if we defend this bishop, which we kind of need to do to have a fighting chance, we have to use one of the rooks. And I moved my left one, which I think the computer doesn't like it as much, and at one point in the game, I wish I'd moved the other one for some reason. I don't remember right now why, but yeah. So we're defending. He's making more space. I don't know why I moved my pawn other than to open up an escape for the bishop, which doesn't really work. It would be nice. It'd be very, 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 very nice if that pawn wasn't there. So that way our I guess it wouldn't actually be good. Never mind. Because my thinking is just kind of like off the top of my head. If we put our bishop on this square, it puts the king in check. So he has to move, and then we take the rook. But the king can move to either of these squares. Defending. So that wouldn't work. So now I want to, I think at this point I've realized the problem with my battery plan. And so I'm trying to get this knight to move away. Because if we take the bishop, and he takes back, and then we take back, we're up the bishop, and then his bishop has to move, so we gain a turn. Even though you would probably just take the pawn to do that. So he moves his knight in a way that when we do this exchange, he doesn't have to move that bishop. So he does that, and I didn't see that he gets to take my bishop back again, so it's even. I can't move this knight anywhere, but I do want to be offensive. Try that. Rook back. I don't think there's any fruitful. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, so I think this is maybe. Yeah, that might somehow be the best move. Let's move in that. Pawn to attack the knight. So again, this idea of what do we do when our stuff is under attack? He's like, okay, I'm going to create a threat somewhere else, namely check, so that you have to spend a turn moving, and I can move my thing. I did that. Then he moves his knight to attack my rook. Because I think his idea was to move his rook after I moved mine. But he didn't see that I can move mine with check. So I get to take his rook. And now stuff is even-ish. As far as material, I have 3, 8, 10, and he has 3, 6, 10. So material is even. His pawns are in a much better shape. So this is kind of, I would say, like proper endgame now. This whole last little bit has been endgame. but now stuff is really whittled down. And so in the endgame, pawns become super important. Pawns and rooks are the things you kind of want to have in the endgame advantages in. And so, in case you've forgotten, if your pawns can get to your opponent's side of the board, like all the way, they can promote to any piece they want. So either a knight or a queen, basically. And endgame, one of the ways to win is to get a queen first, or to prevent your opponent from getting queens. So having pawns spread out where your king can't get to them, where your opponent's king can't capture all of them, right? Because like this guy's really close, so these two are really close. So like my king could get those guys, and I think he could probably get like this one. But like if there were no, like if I had no pawns, I don't think I could stop this guy from queening on this far right side. Or vice versa. Like if I went to the right, I wouldn't be able to get the left guy. So that's why my pawns they can't defend each other, and they're lined up. So, like theoretically, if his king got in front of them, it's just Gobble City. So with this, his bishop is under attack by my knight, so he's moving it to a safe spot. I'm not sure why he moved it there specifically. So I'm trying to again fork, saying, hey, either I'm going to take your pawn with check, or I'm going to take your bishop, both of which are very bad. And he made a very smart move in a way that moving the bishop that defends both of those things. So I'm moving my knight to a more active spot, in a way that I can attack this pawn, right? Because if I attack that pawn, I kind of wonder if that would have been better. Doesn't really matter though, because if that's better. Apparently this is better. I'm not sure why. I guess just because I get to take that for free. I do it the other way. Maybe I can do it in a way that like because I end up putting him in check, because my idea is we got a fork so we can take his bishop, and he makes the correct move, forking my knight and rook. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to lose one of them, so I have to move the rook in a way that's defended by the knight, so he has to take the knight instead of the rook. And at this point I didn't like lots of the potential moves to make. So I decided to just like try to fork pawns and gobble this up slowly. But he's trying to do a queen race, or he's trying to get this stuff queened. I don't think this is a good move for me, just because this stuff is getting bad for me. So at this point, I kind of realized that I can't catch this pawn in time with my king. I can catch this pawn in time, right? Because it moves once, I move, and it queens, and then I capture it. But I can't reach this far pawn in time. So, gotta do it with the rook. He can't really capture the rook with this king, because if he tries to do that, I just jump the rook around. Right, I just capture the pawn. So he's trying to escort it. It doesn't like this move, I think, because I didn't have to. Yeah, it wants me to just push this pawn to getting queened, because it should be safe. But again, I'm worried about him getting queens. His idea is to get this pawn queened, so I have to take it with the rook, and then he's going to capture it back with the king. And then he's just like double guarding it. Actually, I'm not sure why. Oh, I see why. So currently, so I can't capture this with the rook because the king just takes back. So my idea is to take this pawn with check, in a way that he can't capture it. But if I try to do that now, I just lose the rook in exchange for that pawn. Now I say, hey, we're just going to do a queen race, and I will win this because I've kind of like crossed the center line first. So if we move evenly, which is what we try to do, you can see that my pawn is going to get queen first. What I do? And he's like, I don't even know what he's doing at this point. He realizes that if he queens this, he just loses it. So I think, I don't know what he's doing with that knight move. But yeah, I put him in check in a way that gets this pawn. That's not the way the computer wants you to do checkmate. I'm not good at checkmate for the most part, as far as like weird stuff goes. It would be really easy if this pawn weren't here, but it is. So I didn't see a very like clear-cut checkmate pattern, so I was like, I'd rather just like rook queen checkmate him very slowly in a way that I know that I'm not going to get a draw. And draws are something I'll talk about in my next video because it becomes a factor. So yeah, so I'm just gonna run through the game real quick. I didn't play very well, as you can see. Again, my opponent was winning for the most part throughout the game, pretty consistently, by a lot. And again, this spot right here, I didn't read very well, so I put myself in a very bad spot. And again, his king didn't castle, which I think was only fine just because I played so badly. We got checkmate, or checkmania. Putting your opponent's king in check can be frustrating, and it can kind of like tilt them so they make bad decisions going forward. And it's annoying and stuff, but it's not always the best thing to do. So, endgame, I'm down, and I'm just kind of trying to find any sort of advantage I can as far as like stealing a piece. And here was the pivot point. Is when he moved that knight. If he had moved it, I think moving it there would have been better. But I don't know. Oh no, because I can just take with. Although apparently that's bad. So yeah, if you can find these moves where you have a threat and you can put your opponent in check in a way that lets you get that stuff, definitely look for it. Yeah, and if you're getting into an endgame, definitely look for queen races if you make it that far. Again, you want to be crossing that center point before your opponent does, as long as you can do it safely. Yep. So hopefully that helps you. Yeah. Thank you for watching.